Hi, and welcome into Trivia Tarot. This particular video, I wanted to talk about the fear of being seen, which I think many of us deal with. And here's my face in all of its faceness. You know, I think I'm not alone in the fact that I've gone through some pretty heavy times recently. And part of my fear of being seen is that I feel like my demeanor has changed. My look, my face has changed. I look more tired. And I think everybody deals with aging, but, it's like the comparison, the need to compare is so built in to our culture. The feeling of, am I even relevant? The feeling of, do I have something fresh to bring to the table? Wondering all of these things. And the download that I got today, which I think might be helpful for some of you, is not to see yourself from their eyes, not to see yourself through their eyes, whoever they are. And oftentimes they are probably somebody who has already judged us, somebody who has already made us feel less than, somebody who has already cast their stones our way and hurt us, whether that be family members or exes or friends or bosses, authority figures, rivals, or even just, the internet, right? But not to see yourself through their eyes, not to speak through their voice, not to listen with their ears, not to feel with their emotions, right? Because many of us are highly empathic. And while it is a superpower, right? Air quotes, superpower. Or maybe not even air quotes. While it is a very powerful skill and natural ability, it's confusing. Because the nature of being empathic is that we share others' emotions, or we process others' emotions within ourselves. So to see through the eyes of another is very easy for an empath. To hear with the ears of another is very easy for an empath. To speak with the voice of another is very easy for an empath. Many empaths, in fact, are great at mimicry. Like you can kind of get inside the head of somebody else. So when you're doing some sort of like acting or improv, you can embody that person, right? And while that's a wonderful way to gain insight, it's also kind of detrimental to ourselves if we're not careful and able to separate what is ours versus what is external, right? And I decided to post this on this channel because this is shadow work. the nature of shadow work is an investigation. I guess you can imagine yourself being kind of like a detective, right? You're trying to find where this negativity, this challenge to your psyche actually came from. And this is a great opportunity to journal about where those feelings of self-depreciation came from, self-judgment. Are you really feeling that way about yourself, or are you just replaying the emotions that were projected upon you, or the words that were said to you, the reflections that were projected at you about yourself? I went through art school, and if you ever want to learn how to deeply loathe yourself, I recommend art school. It will take an artist who is on cloud nine about having found their purpose, and it will show every possible way to look at everything that you make and break it down piece by piece for no reason other than criticism. Criticism makes for better art, and sure, we can improve, especially when it's a technical thing. But when there is just a patriarchal, and I'm not hating on men, I'm talking about the systemic, and I hate that word too, but the built-in issues in ritualized procedures that give somebody authority over another. So how about we all go into a little dark room, and I'm going to trauma dump a little bit here. How about we all go into a little dark room, and I know you're all horribly stressed with trying to feed yourselves and make the biggest masterpiece for 6 different classes. And now we're all going to sit around and pour our souls out on the wall, and then we're going to tear each other down. Does that sound good? We're going to pick apart everything that you could have done better, or even your intentions that could have been better. Especially when art is a representation of yourself, right? And others then can tear it apart. It's like your soul is literally on a canvas. There it is on the wall. You've been honest. You've been authentic. And the entire class, whether or not they like your work, or they agree with your artistic vision, your mission, whatever it is, whether or not they agree with you, they are expected to find something wrong with it. It's like a competition. I've heard professors say, I don't want to hear you say you like this, you know? And that doesn't just stop with art, because it's elitism. And for creatives, that goes across the board for anything. Film, fashion, music, makeup, all of it. Graphic design. And I really appreciate that a lot of artistic pursuits are now made more mainstream. That things, the way to create isn't so gatekept by the elite. Like, you can go to Michael's and get halfway decent supplies, or even good supplies. You can get an iPad, and there you go. You can use Procreate and make art. You can use GarageBand or some other program to make music and record yourself and show it. But there's still like this competition that exists in simply networking, knowing a guy, right? That can really make somebody feel stunted, make somebody feel like they're in a rat race that they can never compete in, because in order to compete, you have to be able to pay for the most expensive school and live in the most expensive part of the country, wherever you are. Like, it makes whatever you do irrelevant if you don't meet those parameters. And to be clear, I went to a public school. It was a good school, but I also had scholarships. I was not wealthy. I was quite literally a starving artist, but that's another story. So don't get the wrong idea. Now, I took you through this whole story time, and for those of you who haven't gone through the whole art process, or the artist's hazing process, maybe you're not feeling connected to this message, but it is, because there's built-in expectation and elitism, even on YouTube, right? It's like, once you have your golden button, where's your golden button behind you, like, you're in the promised land. But also, the more famous you become on YouTube, the more likely that people are going to find reasons to judge you. People are going to find reasons to dethrone you. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the more of a voice that we have, the more we should take ourselves with a grain of salt, take ourselves more seriously. But it's like, why even bother if I don't have that magical button behind me? If I don't have the magical 1,000,000 followers and subscribers, my acolyte following, why would I even bother? And that brings me back to what I was saying about not seeing yourself through the eyes of others, but to see yourself through your own eyes, through God's eyes. Because if you're seeing yourself through the eyes of others who are already judging you, they come at it with all of these preconceived ideas about what's good, what's bad, what's triggering, what should be reported. There's a lot of silliness that prevents people from feeling brave enough to have creative expression. And that's by design. I forget the term, and if you know it, feel free to mention it in the comments, but there's like this psychological effect. And I believe Brave New World, probably the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, I believe it kind of dealt with this idea, okay? So the idea that if you can get the people to govern themselves through an influence of their psyche, then the government has to do less. Or the authority YouTube or whatever, the gallery system has to do less. So if the individual is putting up mental blocks in their process because of their own internal fears of the backlash of others, because somebody is going to feel like they are entitled to saying something that might hurt, then there's no need to put more rules in place because they're governing themselves. They're already being punished because they're not expressing themselves. Self-expression is a threat to authority. And the masses are effectively the authority. Here's why. Because one of my favorite quotes of all time from Men in Black. A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky animals. When you end up dealing with groupthink, at a certain level, the baseline is not going to resonate with you. And I see that with these YouTubers who blow up. It's like, after a certain point, now they have to censor themselves, because not only do they have the platform guidelines to worry about, they also have the entire internet and the internet's opinions and abilities to firewall somebody coming at them. And I can't get into that headspace, but I can only imagine what that actually is like. And as a very small YouTuber, just the thought of that, dealing with that level of exposure, that level of judgment and misunderstanding, and for many people on the internet, they're uneducated, so they really can't comment on whatever is being said. That's not their fault. Ignorance is not their fault necessarily, but it's dangerous. They are just trolls, so they are the agents of darkness, just having fun, creating chaos wherever they go. And the bigger the target you are, new levels, new devils, that kind of idea. Sorry, I keep rambling a bit, but that idea for me is one of the reasons why I have been really scared to commit fully to being a YouTuber. And especially in the spiritual world, right? Because the other thing is, I don't want to influence people badly. My advice or my experience may resonate with a certain group, and then it becomes misconstrued from others. It still resonates for them in a way, but it's not my intention. And that was something that always bothered me in art school. Was one of the key words was always, as long as you did it with intention. It's like, well, sure, I can write this poem, and every word I can put in it will have intention behind it and will mean something to me. But if you're not in my head, having had my timeline of experience, how the heck are you going to interpret it the same way that I intended it every time? So, like, it's that question of, if you build it, they will come, but are they going to use it as a baseball field? Or are they going to just do crazy stuff there? Is it going to be used as intended? Is it going to influence people well? Is it going to create a battleground? Is it going to, and if you're a spiritual person, an empathic person, a person who cares about their contribution, this is all stuff that's like very complicated, very complex. But I was very much guided to put my big girl pants on and make this video in order to give someone, anyone, a gentle hand to say, you are not alone in all of your anxieties. You are not alone, and you're not crazy. It's good to think this way, but it's also good to just acknowledge it as information. Experience. It is truth. But if you have something to share, if you have something you feel compelled to do and share, then it is in your highest interest, in the highest interest of humanity, to share it. And to be brave, because this shit is scary. It's hard. Especially if we've been through really tough times in our life. To then voluntarily, basically, throw ourselves to the wolves, right? If we have experienced criticism, sure, it can build up a strong exterior, but it can also psychologically take it out of you and make it seem like, what's the point, right? But for all the haters, you're still influencing them. If you are coming from an honest, positive, loving place, and you're not on this platform or other platforms to spread terrible energy, which, if that's you, you probably don't have these issues. You probably don't have these reservations as much as others might. We all have our roles. So, I invite you, if you are struggling with being seen, to do a very simple exercise. Video yourself talking to yourself about why you feel that way. And then if you're ready, you can journal and you can go through all the people who you think about, whose voices you hear in your head when you are about to do something meaningful and creative. What did they say to you? When did they say it? Why did they say it? And why are you still hearing their voices? Can they hurt you anymore? Only if you let them. If you're really struggling, I mean, therapy is a great tool, but therapists aren't going to be YouTubers. They don't have that experience necessarily. Some of them might. But what I recommend is journaling and asking while you're journaling. You can ask your higher powers, whether that be God, he's pretty helpful, or like Aphrodite, if you are trying to reconnect with your essence, right? Or if you're connecting with a transition period in your life, Hecate. There's so many deities that you can connect with to try to pinpoint where that weakness is coming from and how you can overcome it. So, thank you for hanging out with me as I work through this nervousness. And I hope that as we move forward, I can help you. This is 2025 now. As everybody's saying in the spiritual world, it's a number 9 year. It's very exciting. So we all have to encourage each other and be positive and excited and not let the pain of what we've gone through prevent us from being awesome. Because you're awesome. Okay? I love you so much, and I will see you again soon. Bye.